Welcome, viewers, and welcome to the conversation on learning disabilities brought to you by the Dyslexia Foundation in collaboration with the Cross River Broadcasting Corporation. Now, today we are going to be focusing on brain training. What it is, how it happens, can the brain be trained, and why should it be trained? What are the consequences of training the brain? And what kind of improvement do we want to see when we train the brain? What is brain training? Brain training is nothing other than a series of exercises that have been scientifically developed and organized to help exercise the brain. It is a scientific method for exercising the brain over a period of time in order to improve the brain's cognitive efficiency. Over time, we know that if you wanted to increase your muscles or improve your physical fitness, you went to the gym to do exercises. In the same way, brain exercises have been developed to improve cognitive skills over time. What are these exercises? One of the things we do in the Dyslexia Foundation is that we provide opportunity for people with dyslexia to do exercises to improve their cognitive skills. It is almost impossible or difficult to have someone who does not have the skill of reading or memory or visualization to be able to do these things without improving the cognitive skills of the person. And so today we are going to be discussing more on brain training. When we say we're training the brain, what we simply are doing is providing exercises over a period of time, sometimes 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or even more, as the case may be, depending on the severity of the condition that we are dealing with. And those exercises are designed in such a way that they actually exercise the entire 7 cognitive skills of the individual. What are these 7 cognitive skills? Number 1, the skill of attention. As we mentioned in the previous weeks, dyslexics have an attention deficit disorder. Dyslexics lack focus and concentration. And so the first skill that we try to improve in the process of their training is attention, the skill of attention. And how do we do this? We give them a series of exercises that enable them to remain in one space, one place at a time for over a long period of time. Our best testimony is one of the children we dealt with in one of our centers who came in and had less than 5 seconds attention. After a series of training over 6 months, he was able to have 1 hour concentration. And so he can sit in class for 1 hour to study. Before now, he would be distracted, he would distract others, and was not able to sit in one place. But after only 6 months of training him, we were able to improve his cognitive skill of attention. So for most dyslexics, the first thing you do is that you want to train them on how to focus, on how to pay attention, and we do that through brain exercises. The second thing we want to do is that we want to improve on their working memory. The working memory is the memory that enables you to hold certain information in immediate awareness while processing another task. If you were like me, who went to school in the days where we did everything manually, and you were given 15 times 2, the manual way to do it is to say 2 times 5, you know, is 10. You write 0 and carry 1. And so when you now do 2 times 1 is 2, you remember that you have carried 1. That process of remembering that you have carried 1 to add to the 2 that you have got gives you 30, which is the correct answer. But most dyslexics and most people who have a cognitive weakness in terms of working memory would not remember that they have carried 1. They will simply write 20. And so when you see your child or someone with you always writing 2 times 15, always writing 20, that's a clear sign that they lack working memory, or they lack their working memory is poor. Now, for those of you who are adults, when you go to church or you are in the mosque and they mention a particular passage in the Bible or the Quran, and you're writing and trying to remember what that is, and you're looking at your neighbor's notes to find out what that is, that's a clear sign that you have a short working memory as well. because you should be able to remember what the passage has been mentioned while still doing some other thing. So working memory is about, or short-term memory is about that memory that you are able to hold certain information in immediate awareness while performing certain operations. Most dyslexics don't have that attention, don't have that working memory. So what it then means is that when they are reading a sentence, even if they came across a certain word, a simple word as house, they would struggle to pronounce the same word if they saw it in the second sentence. It's the same word, it hasn't changed. They will struggle to remember that word because they have low working memory. They don't remember what they have read. So to help them to read, to be able to read proficiently and professionally, you have to help them to improve on their working memory. And their working memory is what enables them to remember the sequencing of words and then to be able to pronounce them. Of course, there are other things that we do in terms of improving their working memory. So that's the second thing we do. That's the second skill I mentioned. The third skill within that configuration is what we often refer to as processing speed. Processing speed is the speed at which you are able to answer a question or solve a problem. Now we will find that this is not peculiar to dyslexics. Most people who have a learning challenge, whether it is autistic children, whether it is children under the spectrum, autistic spectrum, or children who are having cerebral palsy, they all would have a slow processing speed. And that's why sometimes when people meet them, when they meet strangers and the people ask them, what's your name? While they are still processing and trying to tell you their name, their parents or guardian will jump in and say their name. And I tell parents, don't do that because he's still processing. The more time you give him to process and respond to the person's question, the more he or she will be able to answer the question the next time he faces that question. So processing speed, the speed at which we process information, the speed at which we respond to people when asked questions is another cognitive skill that can be improved upon by brain training or through brain training. So you train the brain, you give it a series of exercises to do in such a way that the brain becomes faster in terms of its processing abilities. Those three I mentioned, attention, working memory, and processing speed, are called fundamental skills. Those are basic skills that every individual from the age of 4 to the age of 12 should be building these three skills. Because when these skills are built at this age, then this person is going to fly and soar, as you see in our banner. It is brain training that makes these children to soar. And so if you do train those three aspects of these cognitive skills, that child will soar as the child grows older. Now, there are 4 other skills that need to be improved upon through brain training. The fourth one is logic and reasoning. There is a logical pattern to everything under the earth. And the brain understands this. To quote an example from the Bible, for those of you who are Christians, the Bible says, the night follows the day. In the same way, we know that there are times and there are seasons. There's a natural sequence to things. There's a sequence to dressing up. There's a sequence to how you read. There's a sequence to how you go even to bed. There's a sequence to how you eat and how you sit at table. So that logical sequence, what we call logic and reasoning, is a skill that is in the brain. After you have learned a series of sequences, then you are able to practice them. Most people who are dyslexic, they are disorganized because they do not observe sequences to things. If you find a dyslexic child or a child who is suffering from any learning challenge at all, the tendency is that when you give them a picture to draw, if they are to draw a house, for instance, their natural tendency is to draw from the roof before they draw the walls. But most normal children will draw the walls before they put the roof. That's sequencing. So when you begin to see that people are doing things out of sequence, then you know that they might be having this challenge. So you need to be trained. There are brain exercises that you do to improve logic and reasoning. I know that many schools at the moment are trying to do non-verbal reasoning. And non-verbal reasoning improves also logic and reasoning. So, but there are other systematically organized scientific ways of proving and doing exercises that absolutely improve the logic and reasoning for everyone who has a challenge, a learning challenge. And so it is to discover that sequence that we do the brain exercises that enables them to learn logic and reasoning. Apart from logic and reasoning, we also have auditory processes. Auditory processing helps people to understand the sound codes in words. This is not about what Montessori teaches. It's not about phonemic awareness alone, but it's about the process of trying to uncover the sound codes in words. As people grow up, as children grow up, they ought to be taught and learn that every word has a sound code. For instance, there are 3 codes in the word cat. Ka-at. That's 3 sounds. If that person understands these sounds, anytime you ask the person to spell cat, the person will not struggle with it. He or she will be able to spell it because they know that there are 3 sounds in that code. So auditory processing skills are improved through exercises in phonemic awareness, in also training them to get the sound codes in words that enables them to then become proficient readers over time. So that's the 5th skill. The 6th skill that is in this spectrum of cognitive skills that we develop in the Brain Center is the one we call the visual processing skills. As I always say to people, you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain. You don't smell with your nose, you smell with your brain. You don't hear with your ears, you hear with your brain. If you see with your eyes, why is it that you're able to move in the dark from your bedroom to the washroom at night when there is no power? Or you're getting into your room and the power suddenly goes off. Why is it that you are still able to locate where you walk through in your house? That's because your brain has learned over the time how to navigate in your house, even in the dark. So that's what we call the visual processing skill. Many people do not have this skill. And so when they are in conversation, or when they are trying to locate a place, you would try to describe severally how to get there, and they do not have any visual image of where they are. A woman brought her driver to our center and said, when she heard us talking about this at some point, she said each time they go to a place, the driver will get lost. He never finds his way back to where they have been because he does not have a mental image of where they have been. So she has to be directing him from time to time. So visual processing skills are also very important, and we do exercises to increase the visual processing skills of people in our centers. One of the children at the center, when we asked him what was the best thing he learned from the center, he said this brain training program has made him to become a better table tennis player because he can visualize. Every subject he does, he has visualization skills to imagine the subject, imagine the theory, imagine even everything. He also said it made him a better table tennis player because he now can anticipate and visualize where his opponent is going to play from and is able to block before the opponent's ball arrives. So his visualization skills have increased, and he took that to his subjects. And for the first time, the mother said, while this child was growing up to SS3, he had never scored more than 14% in mathematics. But when he started the brain training program, in his 3rd month, he was able to get 48% in mathematics. And the mother was wowed by it. Now, we may think 48% is still a fail, but for the mother who has seen the child for 6 years of work not being able to go beyond 14%, suddenly getting to 48 is a great achievement. So by these exercises, we are able to improve the cognitive skills of people so that they are able to excel and become smarter than they have been. The last of the 7 skills that we train in the brain training program is called long-term memory. Long-term memory is the memory that you have after you have learned everything. In order to put it in your knowledge bank, you need long-term memory to transfer it. Long-term memory transfers everything we learn into our knowledge bank. And so for knowledge bank, there is nothing that you can ever use or do that can come out of nothing except it comes out of the knowledge bank. So in the knowledge bank, it is the long-term processing, long-term memory that transfers information to knowledge bank and ensures that it becomes available through processing speed when you are asked. So when you transfer, when there is a deficiency in your
long-term memory, it then means that you learn things and they are not transferring to knowledge, and they're not transferred to your bank, which means later on when you are asked these questions, you're not able to answer them because it's not transferred, which is why many people who are dyslexic or on the spectrum will tell you, I read and I don't remember, because your long-term memory is deficient and it's not transferring information to the knowledge bank. If you want information to come to the centers, please feel free to come to the centers look at the information that we have provided for you, and do call on our specialists and they'll be happy to help you. Until I come to you again next week, this is Ben Arikbo from the Dyslexia Foundation. Have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.